why are you lying? He told me that you would do this. He told me you did it to him all the time. He told me you turned all his friends and family and even co-workers against him.
And you believed him?
Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I believe him? Since we met, what?
You just blindly believe what he tells you because he seems so nice, right? He seems like the most wonderful man you've ever met.
The best man I've ever been with.
Me too, until he wasn't. He lies.
It's like the bitterness. I would think, like, you're moved on now. You've had other kids. I would think that you would have gotten over that. And no offense for calling you bitter, but damn.
As you can see, today's episode is going to be another banger. We're picking up where we left off, and we're still interested in the study of narcissistic abuse and narcissism. I'm Naja Hall, and welcome to this week's episode of I Know I'm Crazy with Naja Hall podcast. Whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening to us on one of the streaming platforms, I just want to thank you so much for being here, so let's get right into it. Today, I'm talking to Lisa Sonni. Before I took that little 2-year hiatus, Lisa was one of my final guests, actually. So when I tapped her to come back on as we're revamping the podcast, she quickly agreed. Lisa was not only a hit with my audience, but she herself has an audience of about 1 million users every single day. This woman has a huge impact, and she's built it all off connecting with people that have experienced some sort of narcissistic abuse. You can find her online everywhere at Stronger Than Before, and of course, all the links are going to be shared down below.
Yeah. Okay, y'all, we are back with another episode, and I'm sitting here today with one of my favorites, and I know I say that about everybody, but Lisa Sonni. First of all, it's too often I feel love at first sight. I know I'm sounding like a narcissist already. Lisa, I love you. But within 5 minutes of us getting on our previous episode, yes, Lisa is another guest that's tapping back in with us this season. Within about 5 or 10 minutes, I was like, oh, this is going to be a real life friend. And she and I have kept in touch. And Lisa was on the podcast 2 years ago. As a matter of fact, she was one of my final guests before I took my very long hiatus. So Lisa is back in the house with us. And as you just heard from her illustrious bio, she has put in work. She has garnered at this point, Lisa, how many TikTok followers? Not that I'm counting, but you have like over 700,000 TikTok followers.
About 720. It's about 1 million across all platforms, but yeah, just over 700 on TikTok. It's been amazing and sad how many people need this kind of support and advice, because I talk about abuse recovery and narcissism, but it's grown quite a bit.
It's grown. So, and I'm not going to ask you why, because, and guys, I'm going to tag the previous episode that Lisa was on so that you can go back and tap in. And I'm going to try not to ask redundant questions, but those of you that are here for the first time and don't know Lisa, can you give us your why? What is your why did I start doing this shit story?
Oh, right. I started due to personal experience. And I feel like a lot of people in the coaching industry take this on because of it. It was like turning what happened to me into a purpose. But essentially, I was in a relationship for a decade, and I didn't know that I was being abused until I was already out of the relationship. And in hindsight, I am lucky to be alive. I really am so lucky to be alive to talk about this and to tell my story. And of course, there's always some details that I am just not at liberty to share. But I try to share as much as I'm able to really help people. And I honestly started just talking about my own split, my own experience, and it led to writing 4 books and writing an amazing course that helps people. I host online group coaching. I host in-person retreats for women who are healing from this across the world, international events. So it's been some immense growth over the last few years, and it's been a wild ride, but here we are.
The question that I asked, and that was so true what you said, a lot of coaches, a lot of us do this because of our own lived experience. And if we can do anything and be impactful, we don't want to see other people go through what we went through. And we surely don't want to see it take as long for other people to reach the place of healing. So you said something poignant. You said, I can't speak about certain things. And I'm sure you do that because you do have you co-parent. I don't know if we can call it co-parenting because you can't really co-parent with the narcissists. They counter-parent everything you do. Lisa's going to teach us a little bit about that. But how do you navigate staying away from getting too personal, but still being genuine online and people understanding and connecting with your story?
It is a tricky balance. And I think that under the framework of running a business, it changes it for me. And I think that what I tell other people is that you are unlikely to be running a business that pertains to domestic violence. And for that reason, you should say nothing. And I am a firm believer that moms, stepmoms, everybody needs to stop with the passive aggressive memes that you post on your stories and all these posts. And I see it on both sides, right? We're all doing it. You
I
can't
never
do that
should.
when you're in an active custody battle. And a lot of people will say, well, oh, I'm not in one.
Oh yeah.
Are your children 18? Because yes, you are. We're always in one. So I
Ooh.
really caution people because I've seen cases go south. And then you see people like, I don't understand why I lost, why the judge is mad
Because
that I
you ran
posted
your
this
mouth on Instagram.
because you ran your mouth. I hope that was worth it, posting the little meme to passive aggressively dig at stepmom or vice versa, and what it
Mhm.
actually costs you in the end. If your kids are your priority and it should be everybody's priority, then stop it. Complain to your girlfriend, get a therapist. Call Naja. Call
Tell
me. You know what I mean?
call me, call Lisa, call Tyrone, like, call somebody, girl. Don't joke posting online. I've had this experience too, because at this point, I've probably gone to court with hundreds of clients, and the things that we keep, I call mine file 13, the trash pile, but screenshots
Mm.
from literally 2013, I still have them, voice notes from all of that time. This stuff is traumatic and it burns, and if you're smart, you're holding on to it. But what are some things that we might post online that we don't know is gonna get the judge or make the judge think that we're being the petty patty? Like you said, passive
I
aggressive. Like I see not tagging a person or posting their photo or saying, "Oh, my child's father is an asshole." What are some passive aggressive things that we do to get us in
Yeah,
trouble?
those things are aggressive, but I think they're pretty overt. And it's like, oh, but I
Yeah,
didn't use his name. How many fathers of your children do you have? Just the one? Then it's obvious, right?
yeah, yeah.
Um, so people need to be aware and cautious of that. But it's like actually, especially about narcissism, right? Like I didn't say anything. I just posted about how narcissists are awful. I just constantly post things about narcissism. But you're clearly talking about co-parenting with a narcissist. That makes an implication of who you're talking about. And it does nothing but rile up the other person. And to me, like, why are you trying to piss off a narcissist if they are
Right.
one? Maybe there's a sense of freedom. You're out now and you can do whatever you want, but it doesn't serve you. So I see
Mm,
people post things or, sort of imagine if your baby daddy did this, or imagine if dad's new girlfriend did this. Imagine if so that happened to you last week and that's why you're posting about it. We all know. So those
uh,
things can be used against you. Judges are not stupid. They're humans. They can see
yeah.
the passive aggressiveness. And if you do it enough and you allow the other party to create pattern and show a pattern of your bad behavior, it speaks to an inability to co-parent. That's not good.
Mm, yeah,
You don't
yeah.
want that.
And those of you're someone that teaches about something that relates loosely or maybe not. I'm not saying that, allegedly, to a lived experience of yours. And I do too. Like there's a very, and I'm pretty sure I've crossed the line. I mean, I'm human. But there's a very fine line that we have to teeter in order to maintain a professional responsibility. But we're still women and we're still human. Damn it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I know.
So, speaking on lived experiences, right? What do you said there's at this point you have a million people that you can touch. Lisa Sonni can make a post and touch a million people in one day.
Mhm.
Did you expect that you would have this type of impact when you started doing what you do?
Are you ready to take your beauty routine up a notch? Maybe your look is already perfection, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with editing your beauty bag. Make a statement with Naja Hall Beauty. We deliver intense multi-chrome eyeshadows, kiss-proof lipsticks, and ageless skincare that brightens and hydrates. Bold looks, effortless results. Shop Naja Hall Beauty today, where audacious and unbothered beauty begin.
Absolutely not. I truly remember my first posts. I didn't tell anybody I even had a TikTok, right? So it was like, I know it's not anonymous. I'm not stupid, but in my mind, it's not a social media account like Instagram and Facebook where your personal name is attached to it and it's clear that it's
Right.
you. Obviously, it was my face, but I didn't go around telling people, hey, follow me. It was just posted a couple things about my own experience and then it built. And then people started saying, wait a minute, tell me more about that. How did you do that? And for me, I sort of created a little niche of talking specifically about breaking a trauma bond when you are in an abusive relationship and you feel like you're stuck and you feel like you're so attached and you just can't break free. Like you love them and you want to knock them out at the same time. You can't live with them. You can't live without them. And in talking about that, people asked about, well, how did you break it? Which led to the books and the course and all that stuff. But I just didn't think that many people would resonate with it. And to say that it is
You
wild,
were wrong.
how wrong I was, because I'm not usually wrong, I'm not wrong. But I was shocked and saddened. Like, I'm sorry that people need this kind of support. I'm sorry that there are so many blended families that are struggling. I'm sorry that there's so many women in particular who seem to be the stepmoms and the bio moms that battle. And I can see why sometimes. I've had clients where I'm truly looking at them thinking like, you're creating some problems here. And it's hard to have that conversation with bio moms because it's like, you're feeding into that assumption that bio moms are all these bitter wives who got left. And that's not always true. But sometimes they are a true victim of abuse. And I take nothing away from what they genuinely, truly experienced. And also, they're contributing to the problems in the co-parenting relationship. And I'm still not going to call them bitter because I tell you, I have such a strong reaction to women in particular calling other women bitter. Because if bio mom is the toxic one, if she's the problem, if she's being abusive, if she's the narcissist, then she's abusive. She's not bitter, like it's just some little emotional woman thing. She is an abuser. So can we stop?
Call it changing the narrative around that word? I feel like bitterness does water down abuse, and it's not.
It really does. And you don't hear men it's like women in their little cat fights, right? Like stepmom and bio mom just don't like each other because she's bitter. It's if she is the problem, and bio moms can be the problem, right? That's not what I talk about on my page, but I know it's true.
Right.
You know it's true. And so I hate the word bitter because that word belongs to men and it is a weapon against women. So when women use it, it absolutely sends me into a psychotic rage. It really does. I want to attack people in the comments when I see it. Let's call her what she is. Say she's abusive. I'm not defending women. I'm defending the word bitter. Or not defending the word bitter. I'm attacking the word bitter.
It really minimizes in that damn patriarchy. That's my first time ever hearing it that way because it's so easy to subscribe to the bitter baby mama trope. Oh, she's just bitter. Because we don't have a word that minimizes a man
down to just some emotion. Because it's like she's just mad because he left. It doesn't really speak to how 80% of women are the ones that are leaving their marriages. So is she bitter? If she's the problem and she's creating the issues and she is a narcissistic abuser towards your husband, not you, but metaphorical, your husband.
Yeah.
And she's abusive. She's toxic.
Abusive. Y'all heard that, right? We have to change, me included. We have to change our language. And I love this education, Lisa, because it's like when you know better, you do better. So all of y'all hearing this, myself included, there's some words that we have to take. This is another word that we got to take out of our vocabulary. We're going to add that to the list. Now, I want you to not be humble for a second. I need to understand, what is it about you? Because it's a lot of people that come out with these pages. They've been through an experience or they have professed that their ex-partner is a narcissist. They ain't been diagnosed. They are just mad at this person. What makes Lisa so special in her expertise?
So I've been told that it's my relatability. I just have an ability to sort of understand some complicated things and make it make sense. Trauma bonding that you experience when you're feeling stuck in this relationship, it's a psychological phenomenon. It's super confusing. Cognitive dissonance, why we stay, all the different tactics of narcissistic abuse. And I started using skits and some real life scenarios and some that I've learned about and patterns that you see. And I've just made it really relatable and an approachable topic, which is crazy because this is a horrible topic, but it needs more awareness. And I think, maybe in the past, it's been a little bit more boring, educational, formal education type of information coming at you that's maybe kind of dry or scary. And I don't want to say that I make light of abuse. If I'm going to joke about domestic violence, I'm going to punch up, certainly. But it's a tough situation. And I think that people just want to feel heard. What I see in my comment sections all the time is just like, oh my God, this is happening to me. Oh my God, that's what he does to me. So it's the connection, that feeling of community. People are experiencing it. And realistically, 25% of women experience some form of domestic violence. So it's not like a small group of us.
25%, a fourth of women experience something.
Yeah.
At the hands of a romantic partner or a person that's supposed to protect them, a loved one.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Unbelievable.
So you mentioned some vocabulary words that people might not be familiar with, and I want to talk about a couple of those before we get into the crux of this conversation. What is cognitive dissonance, and how do we know if we're experiencing that?
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to start with sort of like the clinical quick. It's the mental discomfort that you feel when you're holding two conflicting beliefs. That's in the context of abuse. And what made it make sense to me was understanding it outside of the context of abuse. So something like you're on a diet, you've decided, no sugar for 30 days. And after 22 days, you are at a work meeting and there's a plate of donuts and you're like, I kind of want one. So you tell yourself, it's not cheating. I've been so good. I haven't had a single piece of sugar for 22 days. So I can do this. But you are cheating on your diet because you said 30 and it's only been 22. But you rationalize it because otherwise you're a cheater. You cheated on your diet. That's bad. So you go, and then you rationalize. So it's not the name of the confusion. It's the name of the discomfort from the confusion. So I'm in a relationship and somebody is telling me that this person is abusive, but I know this person and I know that they're not abusive. I cannot hold those two beliefs. So or if you're starting to notice the abuse yourself, you're like, they're good and bad. They're mean and kind. So how does that make sense? Or he tells me he loves me, but he cheats on me. It doesn't make sense. So it's that confusion of, I don't get it. Yeah, you don't get it because it's confusing. Yeah.
The discomfort, the confusion that comes along with, and I know you guys hear the sirens. I'm in New York City. New York is like the third person on this podcast with us. The feeling of discomfort with both things are true at the same time, but it sure makes me feel bad.
Two things cannot be true at the same time. Two opposing things. Sorry. Of course, two things can be true.
Because if you're cheating on me and abusing me, you don't love me.
You don't love me.
Even if you tell me you love me, you don't.
But he says he loves you and he buys you flowers and he cuddles you and he makes you laugh and he's so sweet and he's really good with the kids, but he hits you. It's like, it doesn't make sense, right? And it doesn't have to be hitting, but something bad and something good at the same time. So you start to question. And because these relationships start so good, you miss it. You absolutely miss it. I'll give you a really perfect example from when I met my abuser.
Yeah.
He was amazing. Greatest man I've ever known. I've never loved anyone. I've never had that kind of connection to a person in the beginning. So when he confessed to me preemptively, unprompted, that he had previously been accused of domestic violence and that the woman was a liar, I loved that he was honest, that he told me. I felt terrible for him that he'd had a false accusation put against him and that he was proven innocent. And I am super air quoting proven innocent because that's something else. It was a lack of evidence for a conviction. He was not proven innocent. He was proven not guilty. And let's not confuse those two things. But I believed him. And so when I was experiencing my own issues with him, somehow that did not come back into my mind until way later. But even that, it was like, but I know him. He would never. I know him. Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I thought I knew him, and I get why people think they know their partner. They're so good at pulling the wool over your eyes in the beginning.
The crux of a lot of what you talk about also is, and we're going to go over another vocabulary word, is trauma bonding. Can you explain what a trauma bond is to us and how we know if we're in one right now?
It is a unhealthy emotional attachment that only exists in a relationship where there is abuse that is sort of delivered intermittently with positive reinforcement, which essentially is sometimes they're nice and sometimes they're not, and you never know when they're going to be nice. Yeah. And you're like walking on eggshells, oh, he's in a mood. Oh, I don't know. And you feel nervous and scared. You feel stuck. You feel desperate. You love them. You love them so much and you can't stand them. It's both. You can't picture your life without them and you can't picture another day with them. Sometimes as you move through a trauma bond, you start to really get to a place where you're like, I don't even want to be with this person at all. I literally hate them. Why don't you leave? I don't know. I'm stupid. I don't know what's wrong with me. Every time I go to leave, I feel guilty, or he sucks me back in, or he makes me feel like I'm abandoning him. He brings up his mother. He tells me he's going to unalive himself. That's a trauma bond. You're not free to leave. You don't feel like you have free will. And you do, we do, but you don't feel that way. Tell a victim who's trauma bonded that she has free will. She will disagree with you. It feels like
I'm trapped. I can't actually go.
You're trapped. Yeah, you're trapped. Horrible.
So you had almost like a preemptive warning that because they told you, the abuser told you, oh, hey, I had this BS case, but I beat it. So it's like they almost planted the seed to get you to trust them. And you said, oh my God, they're so honest. They're so, but that would never happen.
I value his honesty. You didn't have to tell me that. Like,
we got
you have to understand, there was no conversation about, we weren't talking about abuse or exes, or it was just out of the blue. Well, why did he do that? In hindsight, it was to foster vulnerability and honesty. Look, see, I told you about it. Now, I wonder if he thought I might find out about it, so he wanted to get ahead of it. And frankly, good on him, because that's a great tactic for an abuser.
And don't anybody out there be getting any ideas, okay? Don't do
so true. Don't do that. Be honest. Don't be honest with a purpose. It wasn't honest.
It was like a complete farce. So, and I know it's hard to give a time frame, but the thing about the narcissist, that if I had to say I liked anything about them, is they are predictable. They have some of them have these patterns. And I know you can't give me a time frame, but when does the what do you call it? It's not a veil when it comes off. The mask. When does a mask come off?
So we say 6 weeks to 6 months. I'll admit that's not rooted in anything clinical. But it is between 6 weeks and 6 months, you start to notice. And the reason it's that time frame, it's because they can't keep it up. It's like me asking you to put on a British accent all the time. You need to be you at some point, right? You can't be fake. You need to show who you are, and they can't keep up the facade. It's exhausting to be nice when you don't want to be, because it's not the authentic them. Because they can go through such long periods of time of being nice, it becomes the only version of them that you know. And this is why when you find yourself in a trauma bond, and you won't know that it's a trauma bond right away, but when you find that, like, you get that first time they yell at you or they gaslight you or just do something kind of strange, it's like, well, it must just be a bad day because I know this person. Now, it can be
away the behavior.
Yeah, every opportunity that they have, they explain away the behavior. I was just in a bad mood. I was drunk. My ex-wife pissed me off. That's how she gets, and it works me up. My job, my boss, my mom, whatever. It's an excuse. Or you made me do that. And it's believable because you trust them. That's the beginning. Love bombing and trust and dependency are the first two stages of a trauma bond. And because of that trust and dependency, you're going to believe a lot of things are not abuse in the later stages. You're going to rationalize it, and they're going to help you rationalize it.
So is there something that we can do? Like, if you suspect, like, is my partner, is this new person, this new guy, this new girl that I'm dating, I see some things about them. Is there something we can do to yank the mask off so we can get our formidable proof so that we can go before years pass? Can we challenge their authority?
That's exactly, you say no in some capacity. Push back a little bit. Just a little bit. You know what I mean? Stay safe. If you feel there's a threat of violence, like, this is not the same conversation. But if you feel physically safe, say no. Have a different belief. say you're not
Refute
cooking
them.
dinner tonight, or say, I don't know if your ex is crazy. Are you sure? Question something just to test, just to see, or defend his ex-wife, or just to see what the reaction is, because anger is usually what you see when they're challenged in some way. And or they'll agree to it, and then you'll get a quiet punishment. If they're really covert, you won't see an immediate reaction, but you'll see kind of a shift, and you might see a really quiet punishment, like being stonewalled or not getting something that you usually get. I don't know if you get flowers every Friday, now you don't, or there's always going to be some kind of shift when you challenge them.
Overt versus covert narcissism. And I know a lot, there's a lot of people that, and I know you probably do this every day, and I hate for you to go through these definitions, but there's people that just don't know. You said covert, sneaky, tiny, quiet, passive kind, and overt. What do those look like, and how are they different?
So first things first is that, as far as I want to make something clear about narcissism, and then I'm going to answer this question. Narcissism is a personality trait. It is not a personality disorder. And whenever I say that, people are like, what? Hear me. Narcissistic personality disorder.
Narcissistic personality disorder.
Because that is a disorder. Narcissistic personality disorder. That's a disorder. Narcissism is a personality trait. So when you call someone a narcissist, what 99% of people mean is your behavior is narcissistic. That's what they mean. And quite frankly, even people like Dr. Ramani, she has very loudly said that in her belief, and she's like the most renowned expert, right?
She is.
He believes that 10 to 15% of the population is diagnosable, whether they go or not. That's a separate piece. And she has also very publicly said that domestic abusers are narcissistic in her view. So we're not talking about the disorder, but the trait. So in the DSM-5, the personality disorder, there's only one kind of narcissist. But experts believe that there's few, and malignant and communal, and there's like 12 different labels. But fundamentally, covert, communal, and malignant. The two that are really talked about. So let's focus on that: overt and covert.
And malignant.
Malignant is bordering.
Teach us about that one too.
Yeah, those ones are tough. But covert, I think the biggest misunderstanding is that they're quiet and they don't yell, and they're very slick, and that's it. Yeah, sure. At first. So the thing that we miss is that covert narcissist will knock your head off. Covert narcissist will cuss you into the next universe in the kitchen when no one's looking. They're not going to do it at the gas station. They're not going to do it at the grocery store. They're not going to do it at your friend's house, because then people will know. So they value that secrecy, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to be absolutely awful to you, very overtly, but behind closed doors. Where they are very covert, and some can be even more covert, where they never yell at you, ever. In 25 years of marriage, she's never yelled at you, never called you a name, but yet they will still destroy you and erode your sense of self. I have a client, I remember her, and it wasn't this one thing. This was the first thing she brought up, and it seems so petty, right? On its own, this is crazy. She said, there's not one photo of us. We've been married for 35 years. We have 0 photos except our wedding day. And he actively goes out of his way to not take photos with her. So if someone's like, hey, let me get a picture of you guys, he's like, no, I'll take the picture of you guys. So there are no photos. Or he'll say to her, he'll make her the photographer. You take pictures of me with our friends. He's erasing her from her own life. He's making her have no personhood. So why did you but it's so small. You don't have any pictures.
Is he aware? Is
photos?
Is he subconsciously? So that's intentional.
Yeah, they know what they're doing. Now, that's debatable. People will say that that's not necessarily true. And the truth is, it's not black and white. Everybody wants to know, do they know or do they not know? It's a gray area. But I would say that I lean to, they know. They know because there's tears coming out of your eyeballs. They know because you said, you're hurting me. So they know.
They know. Care. They don't. They're not capable of caring. Because I guess the one thing to say, they know. But are they going to do something about it? Because that would mean that would lend to the fact that they're capable of empathy. And we know that that's just not what they are. Malignant. What's the malignant kind of narcissist?
The malignant one is much more overt in that sense. Like, they do not care. And
that's a violent one,
narcissist and malignant. Yeah, they're much more violent. They're much more ruthless. Sometimes they just don't care about the law. Like that's the guy that the restraining order is not going to help you.
Ooh.
That's the guy that will stalk you, and that is the guy that will scream at you at the grocery store because you deserve it in his mind. So he won't feel bad about it, and nobody can tell him otherwise. And he'll get away with a lot because he's got confidence and arrogance, and so those ones are super scary and like almost leaning into ASPD and sociopathic tendencies.
Right.
Be afraid of that man. Be so afraid of that man.
And I think it's probably going to be kind of easy to point one of those out, or maybe not, because a lot of people find themselves in relationships with those too.
Not at first, but their mask drops sooner. Yes, and bigger, if that makes sense. Like it'll be bigger instances of abuse.
Explosive.
And scarier. Yeah, explosive is exactly it. Yes, where the covert, like you wouldn't notice. I didn't even notice. I was with mine for just under 10 years, and it was like 7 years in. Not the word abuse, but the feeling of like, this is wrong. You don't treat me well. It took me 7 years to even connect that I wasn't being treated well because he was masterful at the gaslighting of it being my fault and me asking for too much. I constantly was being told that I was asking for too much. And in hindsight, he would say things like, you're trying to give me a curfew. No, it's that you said you'd be home at midnight after work and it's 9:30 in the morning and you're not here yet. Like that's not normal for two people in a relationship where one person just disappears for an additional 9.5 hours overnight with no word. And then is like, what are you, my probation officer? Why do you need to know? You're so controlling.
So trying to hold them accountable for something that we agreed to. I'm holding you accountable and just asking you, and then you get gaslit.
Yeah.
And
but if you came home at 9:30 in the morning, he'd lose his mind, right? That
which I would, honey. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. You won't see me for
that's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
I will dish that back. But when you're in it, you can't because you'll be punished. And in my case, physically punished. So I was not doing that. But you want to like dish it back, but you also think this is awful and you don't want to reduce yourself to how they treat you. But you get petty.
Yeah.
And I get it. I understand the feeling.
Now, this is complex. I want to talk about the more complex side of it because you're teaching women and people how to escape the chains, the trauma bonds, and God bless the people that do, that can get out of it. But I kind of feel like if you're connected to a person through to your abuser, through children that you share, now it's hard because how do we understand and accept this person is my abuser and would do it again any chance they got? I got to send my kids over there to them. I have to share. I have to communicate with them. What in the hell is somebody that's listening to this? And we talked about this on the last episode in way more detail than we're going to do today, guys. But what can we do to protect ourselves? And then at what point do we recognize we got to protect the kids? That's two big old questions. So just answer the first one first. What can we do to protect ourselves?
Yeah, to protect yourself, it's like, I know this is the privilege of having access to these things, but coaching, therapy, support groups, this is so necessary to really start to come out of this fog and start to really keep grounded. Even just distress tolerance and emotional regulation techniques, ways to reframe things, because you're coming out of something where you've honestly just been destroyed emotionally. You don't even know who the hell you are anymore. You can't even look at yourself in the mirror. I used to look at myself in the mirror and try to shame myself into leaving. Like looking at myself like, Lisa, you are so stupid. You are so stupid for being with him. Don't ever do that, by the way, because that is the complete opposite of what you should be doing. But yeah. I was so desperate. So you come out of it and you feel stupid, and people around you are like, you stayed, or you picked him, or well, you had kids with him, or, he's their dad. What are you going to do? And, don't be so bitter, and all these things that are being fed to you. Meanwhile, you are a victim of abuse. So take care of yourself, because if you are calm and regulated and you're working on yourself and you're truly healing, and that's just like processing your feelings, sitting with your feelings, learning about what happened to you, that will help you stay chill. If you're moving into a custody battle, those skills are unbelievably important, because he's going to do things to piss you off. You don't know him. You think you know him because you were married to him or you were with him for a long period of time. You don't know the version of him that has lost you. So now the control is gone. They're going to try to regain that control. And the more that you don't give it to them, they're going to weaponize the children. And that's actually why a lot of women stay, is because they're scared that he will weaponize the kids and be abusive towards the kids. Talking about emotional abuse primarily, because again, physical abuse, like call the cops. But
Yeah.
with emotional abuse, family court does not help as much. Though I will say I have a very different opinion than most people on family court. And it is the most unpopular opinion I have ever had in my whole life.
Really?
Because I've realized when I share it online, people are like, she's dumb. I'm not, but good luck. Good luck convincing me, though. Family court is known to be corrupt and biased, particularly against men. And I think, interestingly, as your audience is, I'm sure, primarily women and primarily stepmothers, of course, there's a narrative that it's biased against men. And let's just go back to the cognitive dissonance, because I'm going to tie this together.
Yeah.
The belief that it's biased against men and the unequivocal, undisputable fact that it's biased against women, not men. That's hard, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to put that together. It's hard to see that those two things cannot be true at the same time, but you really believe that he's not abusive.
You need to believe
he's a
one or the
wonderful
other.
father. You need, and you're trying to hold both, but so you're like, that's not true. No study, no statistic, no amount of information that is readily available right on Google, peer-reviewed studies from every state. 40 states have conducted research into gender bias, and 40 of the 40 have unequivocally proven that the bias is against mothers, not fathers. 86% of dads end up with the exact custody that they wanted. 90% of divorces settle outside of court. So this whole like dad lost, mom's withholding, I'm not saying it's not happening. I'm saying it's in the minority. So I just find that there's this vast majority of people that are like, it's so biased, or but what about dads shouldn't have to fight so hard for custody. Arguably, moms shouldn't have to fight so hard to protect their own children against an abuser when they have, stacks of evidence. Family court is tricky. So here's the opinion that people don't like.
Right.
It's not perfect. Family court sucks. Okay. Like I'm
no
not going to
system is perfect. No system. They're all flawed. Yeah.
But I think the biggest flaw is the mindset of the people in it. Pissed off exes, including victims who are justifiably pissed off, whether it's a man or a woman, justifiably pissed off. The anger, it drags you down. And I see genuine victims of abuse behaving in ways that will lose you your children. You might as well just not fight and just hand him 50-50 right now, because your own behavior is dragging you into the gutter with a narcissist, and he's going to win because they're
he
better.
is happy that you are acting a fool. He is happy
Loving
you're
it.
sending emails and text messages. Oh my God. You're doing his job for him, girl.
You're doing the job for him. So I don't do that, right? Don't do that. So I teach people how to not do that very specifically, right? And it takes, again, emotional regulation, because he sends you a message on Talking Parents and you want to put your fist through a wall. You want to scream at your phone. You're like, this mother, or like, that's not even him talking. That's his damn girlfriend. Why is this woman talking to me? And you get the amount of women that are like, how can I get her to stop being the one talking to me? Move on. Get over yourself. Who cares? Don't worry about that. Doesn't matter. Talk to her as if she's him. Move on. It's the least important thing. People hate when I say that. It should be him. Okay?
She's his secretary. I mean, if she wants to do the typing, like, let her
do it. Now, do I think she should? No. My opinion is I don't think that women should take that on for their partner. Because the thing that the bitter baby mamas, right? The thing that so many of the exes are mad at is that he sucked as a dad. And now you're helping him look better in court. But imagine if you, dad's girlfriend, dad's wife, just supported him emotionally and did not support him in acting for him, in calling his lawyer, in making the appointments and filing the motions and
being his paralegal. And girl, go sit down and find something else to do with your time. Go to the gym.
Get a hobby, something. I know. Because my thing is, let him be who he is. And if he wants his own children, he will fight for them. If you are fighting for his children, which is highly obvious in every situation I've seen, highly obvious that it's her doing the talking, because he didn't care until he met you. So, like, you look foolish. I mean that with as much respect as I can muster up. But, like, stepmoms look so foolish when they're doing all of his work for him. I understand helping. I understand, especially if you're married. I get it. You love the kids. They're your family now. I'm with you. I'm not negating stepmom's role in the children's lives. I'm talking about doing his paperwork and, you should ask for more time with your kids. Why, if he doesn't want it? Let him be the dad that he wants to be.
Okay, I think
Don't
this is
drive
going to
that
be.
boat.
We're gonna after this. I have one more question about protecting the kids, and we're gonna segue into our role play because this is actually the perfect mindset.
Right?
So, you mentioned something earlier. Like you may as well hand over your kids with the 50-50 custody if you're going to act a fool and if you're going to do this. Now, what about in these cases where parents just don't have the option, and you're sending your kids over into hellfire? Your babies are going to be gaslit. You know that they might be turned against you every single chance. They're going to be told to come back and disrespect you. How do you arm your children to protect themselves when they're with your abuser, who is also their other parent?
Yeah. So I am a firm believer that abusive people do not make good parents, man or woman. In the context we're talking about, I'm saying abusive dads. If they're abusive to mom, you are by extension abusing the kids. Full stop, period. Fight me. That's my strong opinion. However, you have no choice now, right? Your custody arrangement is whatever it is, even if it's every other weekend. You're sending your kids into hellfire, and there's nothing you can do about it because that's what the order says. You really need to just stop focusing on what the other parent is doing and saying. Again, unless there's physical abuse, then call the cops, get somebody else involved. But when it's emotional abuse, and I'm not discounting the importance and the damage done by that abuse, but you can't control it as much, and it's really hard to demonstrate. But it's not impossible. It's just really hard to demonstrate. You got to play the long game. So behind the scenes, you're documenting the behavior quietly. Don't be showing your poker hand every time he does something and calling him out. Just quietly document in the shadows. And with your kids, validate their feelings. The mistake that I see constantly is people are like, I don't know why your dad did that. I don't know. He's awful. I know. He did that to me when we were together. Or, that he mentions, they mention dad's girlfriend and you make a face. Like, stop all that. Stop that stuff.
Yeah.
Be the person who just validates. If your child says, I don't like going to dad's house, that must be really hard. What's going on? Ask questions. Oh, he yells at me and he doesn't let me play my video game.
A common complaint with kids.
Yeah. But are there other things that you can do? Or if you're talking about him, like, dad's constantly yelling at me and I'm afraid of him, or he makes me feel bad. Dad's always making me feel bad. You focus on how to make them feel better and how to help them help themselves feel better. That must be really
there
hard,
though.
Because they need that resource. But you have to teach them, and there's no one thing you can teach them in one conversation. It's an ongoing, and this is why it's hard, because now you're starting a process that takes years, and in the meantime, you have to send them over, and they're building that skill. But every time they come back from dad's house, let's say, if they're complaining and saying he yells, he makes me feel bad, he this, he that, I'm sorry that this is happening, as opposed to, I'm sorry your dad's an a-hole. I'm sorry that you feel that way, which I know sounds like gaslighting. When a narcissist says it, it's a different context, right? But I'm sorry that you feel sad. That must be really hard. I get that. I would feel sad too. And then you say, what can we do?
And the hell do you say this when you want to say, that son of a bitch?
Yeah, I hate that man. I can't believe he's doing that. But call your mom, call your therapist, call Tyrone. Don't tell your children. Don't involve the children. People ask all the time, how much truth can I tell them? Age appropriate honesty.
Yes.
Age appropriate. And when I say honesty, they don't need to know if dad pays child support or not. They don't need to know how you feel about stepmom. They don't need to know that dad cheated on you. They don't need to know all this stuff. And people will say kids deserve to know the truth. And I will straight up tell you, and actually this is good for stepmoms and biomoms, what the hell does that mean? They deserve to know. It's going to hurt them.
Girl,
so what
you just want to dump on your damn kids and make them your repository for what dad did to you. You're trying to hurt your child and destroy the image of their other parent. That's what you're trying to do. And you feel good about it because now you've created this little partner in crime. The kids don't need to know that stuff.
Yeah. And you're going to lose your kids because he's going to get you on parental alienation, because guess what? You are. And they're like, no, but it's the truth. The truth can be alienation because it's not appropriate. People say kids deserve to know everything. I mean, do you tell them the color of your underwear? They don't need to know everything. There's stuff that's just literally not appropriate for their age and for the relationship. Even if they're 18, you're like, oh, they're an adult. They still don't need to know that their dad cheated on you.
There's a lot of people that disagree with what you just said, though. I mean, but I know there's so many people. Yeah, they're going to drag you for this, but y'all going to have to drag me too. Because I 100%, if you can just keep your damn mouth shut. And I know your mother did it to you. I know your father did it to you. I know your grandma told you all the granddaddy's business, auntie and uncle. I know the adults in your family parentified you. And now you're returning that cycle with your children. But the adults in your family did not protect you. And now you are doing the same thing to your child. So Lisa and Naja are telling you, advising you, best practice. To keep your damn mouth shut and go talk to one of your friends. Call me, call Lisa, call Tyrone. Don't call your kid in the bedroom and tell them what their daddy didn't do. Dad didn't pay child support. Mama cheated on me. Mama got a new boyfriend and you can't like him. You don't call him daddy. He's not your dad, even though he sees you more than I do. We don't do that with our young minds. Can that be classified as abuse?
When I believe it to be emotional abuse. I do. And it's again, like why it's so hard, because there's victims of abuse, like seriously true victims of abuse that hear me say that they're being abusive and they're like, what? And they get so defensive. Your ego is coming up. Let's talk about that. Like, let's talk about why you're so offended by what I said. Because if I told you that your ex did what I just caught you doing, you'd say it was abuse. Why is it different? Because you're the victim. You're the survivor in this. I hear you. Your children are having a whole different experience, and it does not benefit children to not like their parent. Let your children have the experience that they will have, and you be there to hold their hand, wipe their tears, and hug them, and focus on your relationship with your kids. And I feel Will Smith coming out right now. Keep my wife's name out your mouth. Just don't talk about your ex to them. I'm sorry that you feel that way. I'm sorry that happened. Not, I'm sorry that your dad lied to you. You don't have to be, even if they say dad lied to me, you can say, I'm sorry that you're hurt. Let's talk about that. And you just go back to their feelings. It's hard to master that because it's like, oh, what do I say?
How do you say it? And it's pissing me off right now because you're right. But there's something so poignant. You said even victims of abuse, when they go and emulate, like they go and do that behavior, and you're saying, hey, you're abusing your kids. They can't see it. And I hope that if anybody's out there within the sound of our voices, if this is you and you recognize you've done this to your children, well, let me ask you, Lisa, like, what do you do if you know, like, oh my God, that's me. My kids know exactly how much child support I get. My kids do know my ex-wife cheated on me. What can you do to clean up the mess that you've made in your kids' minds?
Oh, I would sit down with them and have an honest conversation and say, listen, over the last months, years, I think I have overshared things with you that you really didn't need to know. And I've involved you in some conversations and some information that has probably made you feel uncomfortable. What's actually happening, as an aside, is a loyalty bind, right? Like, we don't like dad, or you can tell. So you're making your kid feel like, oh, I don't know if I like this person, or I'm not supposed to like this person. So they feel bad. And actually, you see that a lot with bio moms and stepmoms too. Like, can't say Naja's name in my house. So then they have to pretend that they don't like you.
Girl, did you read some emails from
they love you.
How do you know it?
I got stepmom sitting in front of me too, right? I got the new supply, so to speak, sitting in front of me sometimes. But you just own up to it. And actually, that applies to family court too. If you get nailed for something like that in family court and a judge tells you you've been doing that, own it. Tell them you will stop. Tell them you will seek therapy and you will work through it, and it will not happen again. Tell your children the same thing. I probably made you feel uncomfortable, and I'm going to stop. Then just do better moving forward.
Be better and do better. And it's so easy to say, damn it, stop. You know it's hurting. Stop. Oh, okay. So our role play, I'm going to set this up right. And the role play that I did on the last episode, the one that we did before you, it got real. And I want me and you to get real. You and I are both very passionate women, but we're going to have to use different names, because what happened is people thought like the last role play was real, and they started dragging me online. You
I
thought
thought
it was
it was, I really thought it was real, but I was so confused because I was like, is this old? Like, what's happening? I was enthralled with the
real?
whole thing. I was floored. I'm scrolling through all the parts.
Oh
So
shit.
it was
So what am
amazing.
so I want to change our names today. So if anybody's watching this and they don't know and they know us, they'll be like, wait, her name is not like I'm gonna be, let me see, my name is gonna be Pam. My name's Pam, and your name is gonna be Gina. So they'll be like, that's Lisa. That's so maybe that'll help them to realize that this is a role play exercise, guys. And the purpose of us doing these role plays is because I want to demonstrate real life conflict, real life actual shit that happens every day. And I want me and Lisa to be, or me and Gina. Wait, who am I? Pam and Gina.
You're Pam.
I want us to be examples that you can use as a teaching tool. Okay. So let me switch cameras. All right. So
If you're feeling overwhelmed by conflict and chaos in your blended family, join VIP Stepmom by Naja, a private community just for stepmoms. Gain exclusive access to courses, a private podcast, expert workshops, and live meetups, all in a supportive members-only space. Visit VIP Stepmom today.
all right. So I want us to, you know how you were talking about when you can tell when it's the new partner texting you and she's like doing all the work for him. I want you to really speak to that, right? I am the new, let me see, am I going to be the girlfriend of the wife today? Today I'm going to be the wife. I'm the wife, and you're going to start the conversation off. Well, I'm going to call you. I'm going to call you. And then you're just going to, okay, we're just going to get into it. So I'm so glad that me and you are sitting here today, because this is something I've seen you make the accusation in Talking Parents, and I just don't appreciate. You think that it's me typing and texting for him, and I'm much too busy taking care of you guys as kids to send you to sit and type. I'm not his paralegal. I don't do that kind of stuff. And I would really appreciate it if you would stop making the accusation, Gina.
I disagree, though. I know him. I was married to him for 12 years, and I know exactly.
I'm married to him now.
I was married to him longer, and I know the way that he communicates, and I know that there are words that you use that he does not use. And I know that it's you, because he never cared about having the custody. He never cared about all this time with the kids, and all of a sudden off you come into the picture, and now suddenly he cares. Suddenly he's communicating all the time. Suddenly I'm getting all these messages.
He just said it was impossible to communicate with you. You kept the kids away from him. And since we've been married, since I became his wife, I literally recognize the things that you do. I see what you say. Yeah, I mean, I read the messages sometimes, but just to insinuate that I actually have time to teeter-totter with you guys in your co-parenting business when we have kids of our own.
If you're not the one typing, you're sitting right beside him dictating what to say. It's so obvious. I think you're missing something. You're missing that you were not in our marriage. You just believe all the stuff that he's told you. And I might not always act in the best way, but I have such a good reason to be angry based on what we experienced in our marriage. You
a long
were not
time
there.
Ago? Of course I wasn't.
Things that
there,
are still happening. Things that are still happening. The way
like
that he
what?
Passive aggressive comments. He's late. He says he's going to do things that he doesn't do. He's always behind on his child support. And I know he doesn't tell you that, because every time I get a message saying I always pay on time, he knows he doesn't pay on time.
I pay his I make sure he pays. Like he being late, that's a really, like, why are you lying? He told me that you would do this. He told me you did it to him all the time. He told me you turned all his friends and family and even co-workers against him.
And you believed him?
Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I believe him? Since we met. What?
You just blindly believe what he tells you because he seems so nice, right? He seems like the most wonderful man you've ever met.
The best man I've ever been with.
Me too, until he wasn't. He lies.
It's like the bitterness. I would think, like, you're moved on now. You've had other kids. I would think that you would have gotten over that. And no offense for calling you bitter, but damn.
It's so easy, though, to say that because, again, you weren't there. But being angry at the current way that he treats the children, the way that when they come back, the things that they tell me about what it's like being at your house with him specifically, how he interacts with them, they don't even want to be there half the time. They don't.
Of course, because they have a mother that's promising them, she got them a big guitar and a puppy and all this other stuff when they get back. So of course they're anxious and in a hurry to get back to your home. They have 2 houses. Your kids have 2 homes.
Yes. And I get that. And I get that you are their stepmother and you don't need to be in the parenting app telling them what to say. You forget that he was not involved in any of this. He was not invested in being a father until you.
He couldn't. He could not, because you would not let him, Gina. That's why.
Prove it. Prove it. Pam, prove it. Show me the messages.
Prove that he's a liar. Prove some of the stuff that you're claiming that happened years ago in a dead marriage, one that you know shouldn't have happened any damn way. Hey, prove it.
Why have all of the receipts from all of the conversations, months where he didn't even see the children, months where he didn't even ask to see the children? And he'll tell you, oh, because I was withholding and he just gave up. Who gives up on their children? You're missing it. You're not seeing it. When someone is a narcissist, and I know he's a narcissist.
Right, we go with that again. He's a narcissist.
You're missing it. They're so good at pulling the wool over his eyes. You've only been with him for 3 years. You have no idea what he's really like. Just wait. Just wait. For me, it was like year 6. You're almost there.
He's a narcissist. Okay, I'm just going to humor me. What makes him a narcissist? Because I'm going to say this. The person that he was with you, and I'm so sorry you had a bad experience. I'm genuinely sorry for your experience. I just bring out the better man in him. This is no shade to you and your femininity or whatever, but I bring out something in him that you just could not. And I'm sure
are abusive. They're not abusive to one person. You're literally telling me right now that he was abusive to me because of us, because of our dynamic, because of me in the relationship. So that was what made him scream at me, call me names, belittle me, not do anything around the house, and never care about his children. Me.
I never said that he was abusive to you. And again, like, those are things
I'm saying he was abusive to me.
I wasn't there. Like you said, I was not there in your marriage. You could be making all this stuff up. He told me that you do have a tendency to do that, though.
And you believe him.
I've seen your handiwork. I've seen the kids.
I've seen your handiwork, and I've seen his handiwork.
What's my handiwork? What is my handiwork?
All messages, all those little passive things you do. You're always trying to be all cute with the kids and try to get them to spend more time at your house when I have more parenting time than you.
You don't want to share your kids? You don't want to go off and find a damn life on your own? Hey, we're happy over here.
I have a life.
Dissecting the messages that come from my husband? That's you call that a life?
I have a whole life outside of that.
Calling him a narcissist when you had a bad experience?
When someone's abused for over a decade and you just wash it down to oh, you had a bad experience. He's just better with me, as if I'm the cause. You just don't see it yet. You're already seeing bits of it, I bet. I bet you sometimes you're like, I wonder if she's telling the truth. You'll see it. One day you're going to call me. We're going to have a whole different conversation one day. Watch. You'll see.
And cut. Okay, guys. How did we do? How did we do? So one thing that I realize is the cognitive dissonance is real, because I can't, Lisa, you're back to being Lisa and I'm back to being Naja now. We can't differentiate between, and we don't want the other bitch to be right. I don't want you. It's humiliating. My ego won't allow me to be like, damn. And then he's also told me that you're a categoric liar. You're the one that cheated on him. You're the one that abused him. You alienated, all of the things. So on those ends, it's very difficult when a woman is looking at you from her own lived experience and being like, girl, you're going to see. Mm-hmm.
I do know that, but it is truly statistically proven that less than 2% of women are making false accusations. I think there's probably another category of women that it's not false. It's maybe that they're not seeing it in the perfectly right way, or it's colored by their own anger and feelings.
Well, that's false. I know
I think yes, but what I'm saying is they don't think that they're lying. They believe their own lies, and then there's the absolute liars. The liars are rare. I think the you don't think you're lying group is bigger. And I think that, even
I know some people that have used lies. I know some people that have used lies as an excuse. They're like, well, if I tell the truth on the stand, I'm going to get my ass locked up. So I have to lie. Like it's necessary to tell this lie. I do know some people. So yeah. So is that what you're saying? Like they actually believe it or they perceive the truth as different? Because then I'm going to call them a schizophrenic. So which one are they?
Yeah, good question. I think the group that I'm kind of talking about is like he cheated and so you're mad and then you guys would fight all the time as a result of something that he genuinely did, and now that flips into like he was abusive because he was always yelling at me, or maybe you were antagonizing something and that's what made him yell. And that maybe fits more into the toxic category. Abuse is a big accusation, and an appropriate one when it's appropriate. But battles can sometimes, like the different lived experience. I just know that the next woman is always going to get a better experience than the last one until they don't. With an abuser, I'm not saying all women are going to have a bad experience with their husband.
Right.
It's if he is genuinely an abuser, you will eventually see it.
You're going to get it, girl. You're going to get it. So your day is coming. Your number's going to be up. Your card's going to be pulled.
I just always ask people, I mean, stepmoms in particular and dad's girlfriend and whatever, just
ask. I'm going to answer. Ask us.
For a minute about if she's telling the truth. And I don't even mean a minute. Just really, really think for a second. Could she be telling the truth? And just walk yourself through that process. Even if she's angry and bitter and all the things and blah, 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 and you can't stand her and she's been so horrible to you, just step back and say, what if every word she said was true? And if it were true, would the way she's behaving be in any way more appropriate or appropriate? Would it make sense to me? Would I behave this way? Because a man who, like, let's say she's accusing him of like cheating and screaming at her and not doing anything and not caring about the kids and all this stuff. Is she really just making it all up? It's just so rare. I'm telling you, it is so much more rare than people think. And in that skit, when you were like, oh, he's not like that with me. Like, I'm so triggered by that because I believe you that he's not like that with you yet. But if he really was like that with me, you will see, because that's what happens. You're the new toy. You're a decade younger than me, right? And I don't know if you are specifically, but I'm just saying, like, the new girl is like 99% of the time she's 5 to 10 years younger. And I know
she's
it just
a little
gets
more
gullible, jealous, but no, it's you lack life experience, right? That's generally it's just a lack of life. I'm not even saying you're stupid or naive. You literally just haven't learned yet. Women don't really click to the way that men treat them 30s, 40s. And that's why the patriarchy has a built-in defense that as soon as you're 40, you're washed up and stupid and nobody should be listening to your haggard old cat-loving, wine-drinking self, right? It's built in.
Wine right now.
It's built in. So as soon as, and that's when women in their 30s and early 40s, it's like, okay, I'm done with this guy. You leave him. He goes to get the 26-year-old. And she's like, oh my God,
better.
I'm so much better than her. I'm so much hotter than her. Okay.
And it's like, little girl, keep living. Like my grandma always used to tell me that. I'm like, oh, look at that old lady. Grandma said, baby, keep living. And it's like, wow. The new
and
toy,
if she's wrong, if baby mama is full of it, then don't mind her.
And
just
she's one of those female narcissists that rarely gets talked about.
Don't get worked up.
So you asked a question and I want to go back to it. You said, what if she is telling the truth? I think one of the reasons why it's so difficult to consider that what if is because, and we ain't tone policing, but we kind of all do this. Her tone is so jacked up because just imagine that you're the new supply. Or if he's not a narcissist, you're the new partner. And she's out there yelling and banging, you ain't shit, and I hate you, and you abuse me. And, they could have had a very tumultuous relationship. And he's with his new person, looking at this other woman acting, and I'm going to throw this word out here. I know this is one that Lisa ain't going to like. I'm crazy, but the name of the podcast is I Know I'm Crazy.
Crazy.
Looking at her, it's easy to reduce her as this thing that he claims that she is. And as a woman that doesn't act like that, when that is directed at, when you're getting such visceral, it's really hard to empathize. But when you're pissed off, I was walking down the street. They were shooting a film because I live in Harlem. And they always shoot Law and Order on 120th Street in Harlem. Always. Detective Stabler, like Benson, we see them all the time running and shooting. They block off, we can't find damn parking spots because they block off whole streets. And if you've been in New York, parking is like next to impossible. So, like we'll see this. And they were shooting one day and this Amazon guy was like trying to deliver his package. And the reason I know what was happening, because all of a sudden he started screaming to the top of his lungs. He was like, spit on me. Apparently some woman spat upon him. I don't know if she's New York, we have all the crazies here. I don't know what the situation was, but he started making so much noise and it stopped us in our tracks, my friends and I that I was with. The only reason that he got our attention is because he screamed. So we go over because then the cops get called. And I'm like, oh my God, it's a young, angry Black guy. And we're in New York City. He's in uniform. He's claiming a white woman spit on him. And he's irate. He's fussing. He's this. And you could see, like, I got up close. You could see spit on him. And I was like, oh shit, did she really do that? I hope he doesn't knock her ass out because I would have laid her out. But I'm a woman though. And I know it's different. Like you said, it's different for women sometimes. So I just remember all of us saying, dude, the cops are coming. They're going to pin you to the ground because you look angry and irate. You need to understand how you're being perceived here. You're going to go to jail. And then sure enough, when the cops came, they saw him like, oh, that's special. Like he was on level 1000, rightfully so. And so I'm thinking about this woman that you're telling me about. She's on level 1000. She's having to drop her kids off. He did abuse her. He does gaslight her. And here you come just smiling with him, writing his texts and emails and shaking those pretty boots he just bought you. Calling her, you bitter bitch, you. And here you are just standing with him and he's looking like this valiant Superman. And she's feeling antagonized and small and she's haggard and she's hurt and she's pissed off. But I just remember how that dude was perceived, and I'm like, dude, they're not going to listen to you like this. You need to find it in yourself to calm the F down, or they're going to take your butt to jail. And so it's hard for us. I said that long story. It's so hard for the person to recognize that when you're being almost antagonized and attacked along with a person's former abuser. Like, I don't know, like you got a million people that look at you. So I wouldn't want to be with, I wouldn't want to be that woman that, has to have a support group because it's like, oh, his ex-wife is laying the hammer down every chance she gets. I mean, that.
I tell bio moms, don't be what he says you are. New supply, right? You're the new supply. He's going to say, Naja, my ex is crazy. She's a lunatic. She withholds the kids. She does this. She does that. She cheated on me. He cheated on her. And he'll tell you all these things. And then how do you know? Her being irate and crazy, because let me tell you, there is a certain person who I will not talk about who thinks I am crazy. And she witnessed me do crazy things.
Oh, shit.
But she didn't have the context for the crazy things, right? What I commonly see is like, oh, look, see, I watch her withhold the kids. Do you not realize that he has a substance abuse problem? Do you not realize that I have witnessed him drive while watching YouTube at like 100 miles an hour in a 60 zone? Like, I am not handing my children over to a person like that. I see this all the time where she doesn't want to because of evidence that she has. Whether I'm not talking about legal evidence, but just her own lived experience.
It's happening.
So yeah, I'm crazy. Or the usual, right? Like this is maybe not usual, it's not fair to say, but let's say you meet someone and he is divorcing or separated or whatever, and you're not the mistress. You're not the mistress. But did you know that you are? Now, that's not always. I'm just talking about that group, right? I'm separated and, she's crazy. Or he's separated because she kicked him out and they're talking about reconciling, but he's dating you and he's lying that you exist and he's not being honest and he's dragging his divorce out and he's telling you, oh, I just tell her we're still together because, I want to see the kids. That is common. That woman is sitting in front of me often,
That's
telling
common
me
as
that
hell.
that's what happened. It is. So you didn't do anything wrong. I'm not saying you're a mistress, like intentionally. I would argue you're just part of the abuse because he's lying to you too. He's telling you
an innocent
that he's not with
victim.
his ex, but he is. He's playing both of you. And you're both like fighting. And again, the patriarchy, they love to set it up where the women fight so that the men get away with everything. Because now we're focused on, does Naja and Lisa get along, or Mark is being abusive? Nobody's talking about Mark. They're talking about
Mark, the man in the middle.
Right? And it's him. So I don't know how you can always tell, but I encourage, step back and think, if she were telling the truth, does this start to make sense? Does it really, if she's telling the truth, does it make sense? What do you really see? If you have your own kids with him, or even if you don't, do you really see him like really engaged? Where's your bar for what a good father is? Because I mean, I have women sit in front of me like, he gives them baths, he eats them, he comes to their soccer games. And I'm like, sorry, I thought you said he was a good father. That's bare minimum. I'm not saying that's a bad father, but you're holding a balloon for him. Why?
That's a tough pill to swallow. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get a lot of emails about that. I posted a couple of weeks ago on it was TikTok or Facebook. Me and you follow each other everywhere, but we were talking about what makes you the side chick or the mistress, and everybody had different opinions. Like, I am not a person that I don't believe that you have to wait on some dude to bang a gavel to call a marriage over legally. Because there are some people that are in the confines of a marriage that will just lie and cheat. You are an adulterer. You've committed infidelity. And there are some cases where both parties know. Boom. You and I just talked about the case where he's got one foot in and one foot out. And then there's another innocent victim that he's dragged into the bullshit. He is, because he's in a family and he's still lying to the other party. Somebody made it very black and white. I forget who that was, but they're like, listen, if they're still married, then you're an adulterer. But what if you are in divorce court? Like, what are Lisa's thoughts on that? We're in divorce court, and whatever the scenario is, like, one person wants it, one person
even if you're
doesn't.
not in divorce court, my personal opinion is if you are no longer in a committed relationship, you're not living together, you're not, I mean, I know there's some weird like cohabitating for the kids. Don't trust that man. Don't trust that man. But
girl, wait till he gets his own apartment, girl.
Right? Like, at least wait until that. But even if he has his own place, what I'm saying is, like, he could still be like pretending that he's reconciling with his wife, or pretending that he's reconciling with or just coming and going as he pleases in that relationship. They're still knocking boots, and you are being fed a story that she's crazy. So she's calling him when you're out to dinner, and it's like, see, she's calling me again. Psycho.
When this woman is trying to save her marriage because she feels like something is weird.
Or she's calling him because he said he would be there and he's out with you.
Or there's that.
I mean, I've had my son sitting on a front porch with a backpack waiting to go-karting. And he was go-karting with his mistress. So am I crazy for being angry, or am I justified? Do you know what I mean? But like, I'm blowing up his phone, maybe I shouldn't. Some women would be like, I would never blow up his phone. Fine. Good for you. Gold star. But I blew up his phone. Am I crazy? Or am I
you pissed off and you were hurt for your kid? Like, you're watching your baby be disappointed. Any mom is going to fight for her kid. Are there anything, I know, so is there anything looking back, like in the very beginning? But you said there's a person that could say, yeah, I'm pretty crazy. Like, I've seen Lisa go off. She's crazy. Is there anything that you just wish that you wouldn't have said or did when you were removing yourself from the trauma bond? Any regrets? Man, what's the regrets?
I regret allowing myself to compete with someone for a bag of garbage, because she can have him. She can have him. Like, I competed. I asked to let me have this garbage. And in hindsight, like, that's so embarrassing. I can't think of a time in my life that I have reduced myself to such a pathetic person. And yet, if I was talking to someone else, I would never call them pathetic. So it's not kind that I'm not being kind to myself, but I would never, if he makes himself seem available, go. Take him and go. I don't know why women compete over men, because like men are a dime a dozen. Men are unnecessary. They're a dime a dozen. I'm not saying there aren't good men out there. I have one. I have a wonderful man now, but
Boom.
I wouldn't compete for him either. Piss off. Because I'm not participating in a competition. I'm the prize. He's not the prize. Always. And when you have self-esteem that's higher, that's better. But I didn't at the time. And it was just like, give me a chance to make my relationship work. But meanwhile, like, it was already
So you're like,
over.
hey, Lisa, listen, I know what's going on. I found out. Can you leave him alone so we can make it work?
Yeah.
And what did Gina say? Wait, am I Pam or Gina? Damn it. What did Pam say?
Basically, Pam said that she would and that she knew he wouldn't. I'll leave him alone. He's not going
to leave me alone.
I will never call him again, but I'm going to answer when he calls. And guess who ate their words? Me, because absolutely took like 6 hours. Took like 6 hours.
That's not funny.
Yeah, I ate crap that day.
And that just makes us feel lower and lower and lower.
Yeah, like you just feel worse and worse. You know, just don't compete. If your man wants to be somewhere else, it's because he wants to be somewhere else, and it's the hardest hell to take.
Help him pack, drop. I would say, baby, I will drop you off over there to her.
Mm-hmm. Which I ended up doing that. Helping him pack and like, gone. Because he was still trying to, right?
Play both sides.
Yeah. I was like, no. Now I got hit with like not a literal brick, but like metaphorical brick one day.
Yeah.
And that was it for me. Something happened, which I cannot talk about, but something happened and it was like, that's it. And it was just the cherry on top, and I couldn't handle it anymore.
Was it like a rock bottom? I know you can't talk about it, but was it like a rock bottom moment?
Yeah, it was a rock bottom moment for me. I was told something. Like, it was confirmed that there was an affair.
Okay.
And through an insane way, not her, through a different insane way. And that was it.
That's it.
I'm like, what on earth? What am I doing? I kid you not.
Am I trying to save? I'm trying to save garbage. That's what you were trying to. We all do it, and I feel like on some hand, like, you know, I've talked a lot about my own issues with self-worth and not feeling like I belonged or I was like any of the things, but you know, it's just like, was your self-worth diminished because of this relationship, or was it already low and this person found like the perfect victim in you, or was it like a mix of both?
I lean to a mix of them both, but heavier that this relationship is what destroyed me. I would not say that I had the highest prior, but it was much higher than it was at the end of this relationship. Like, it was in the trash after. But it actually had more to do with people pleasing and like childhood experiences that just lead you to believe that it's normal to sort of change who you are to accommodate people, because there's just something kind of inherently wrong with you. It's very like unconscious belief. But it led me to believe a lot of the things that I experienced during the relationship. So at the end of it, it was like, I couldn't see that I was fighting for garbage. It felt like I was fighting for something really important.
And when you saw like, this shit has no value. This is literal like dress barn consignment shop garbage. How long did it take you to get back to
14 months? 14 months, exactly. And it takes a different time for everybody. I hate answering that question sometimes because it could take you 6 weeks and it could take you 6 years. There's no right or wrong. It depends on your access to resources, your ability, what you already know, what you need to learn, your experience. Are you co-parenting? Are you not? There's so much. But
14 months was your sweet spot.
14 months for me to really like stop all of the nonsense and not care anymore and not be trauma bonded and not care about Pam and not just, who cares? I don't care.
What makes you happy nowadays?
Me, I'm just happy with who I am. Like, the biggest thing to learn for, frankly, any woman in any experience, any walk of life, is to know how to self-validate. And that was a really pivotal thing for me, is I don't need anybody else to tell me if they like me, if I'm good, if I'm funny, if I'm a good content creator, I don't need anybody's validation. I like me. I am happy with me. I also have amazing children, who I love, and I have an amazing partner who I adore, and I've got multiple businesses that I'm happy with, and I travel, and I have great family, and I have great friends. Like I'm filled with happiness in my life, and
Yeah.
it's so different from when I was in an abusive relationship and coming out of it. I was so miserable all the time. It's such a shift.
Yeah. I love that. I love that for you. And your face was lighting up. For those of you that are listening and you're not watching this video, it is available on YouTube, by the way, if you want to see our pretty faces. But your face was lighting up and glowing when you were saying that. So I know that you've truly reached a place of balance and peace. And I'm so thankful that you're out here teaching the people. Lisa, tell everybody where to find you. How can we hook up with you? We want to get the courses and the books. And how do we tap into you?
So my screen name is Stronger Than Before. So my website is strongerthanbefore.ca, not .com, because surprise, surprise, I'm Canadian. And my handles across all social media platforms is Stronger Than Before. And my other business is wellnessrecoveryretreats.com. And I host retreats in Mexico, Florida, and other places for people to check out. They're all healing retreats. They're all women's retreats for people who have been through trauma and abuse. So you can check me out there. And the Trauma Bond Recovery course is on my website. And just real quick, that course is for people who are in or have been in a trauma bond and wanting to heal from the effects of an abusive relationship. So it rebuilds your sense of self. It teaches you skills. I've also got 4 books. And I think probably the one that makes the most sense in this context is Narcissism Unmasked. That one is about all the terms and tactics that happen in an abusive relationship, what language you're going to hear. So everything from like the pop culture terms of flying monkey to what's a dog whistle and all the different types of narcissists. It breaks it down in different types of abuse, what it looks like, reactive abuse, all the things. So Narcissism Unmasked, and all my books are available on Amazon or on my website at Stronger Than Before.
Gosh, Lisa, as always, and I'm probably going to ask you to come back again and again and again, because I genuinely enjoy our time together, and I love talking to you. And thank you so much for teaching the people of I Know I'm Crazy. And please go and support every single thing that Lisa does, guys. Buy her books, check out her website, go follow her on all the socials. Everything is going to be tagged below in the description. And I will see you Tuesday after next, everywhere your favorite podcast or stream. Thank you so much for watching or listening to another episode of I Know I'm Crazy with Naja Hall.
Did you pick up any healthy nuggets from today's episode? Did you feel triggered? Did you feel touched? And like I always say, if you can't say amen, say ouch. There was certainly a few moments in there for me. I was like, girl, ugh. I'm gonna leave you with this little adage today. Of all the things to keep in this world, keep it real. And be sure to like, tune in, subscribe, share, and follow. And definitely comment, because I'm trying to beat this algorithm. I'll see you all next time. And thank you so much for joining us at I Know I'm Crazy with Naja Hall.
I know I'm crazy. I know I'm crazy. Naja Hall.